What's up, guys? I'm Shreyas Laddha, and I have my guy Carter Stanley here. It's another episode of Rock Chalk Film Room. It's been a minute because we had a bye week after Kansas lost to Missouri, and now Kansas starts Big 12 play against West Virginia on Saturday. Kansas is, I think, 12 and a half point favorites as of right now, so almost two scores, or really two touchdowns, really. But, you know, West Virginia came off a big win against rival Pitt. That they have to feel good, especially after losing to Ohio. And I think we wanted to talk about the big focus is the tempo that Pitt has. I think they're ranked second in the nation in tempo and how quick they go to run the plays. And I think especially KU's defense is going to be tested by that.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see, West Virginia coming off of a big emotional win in the backyard brawl versus Pitt. Definitely a needed bounce back game for them after losing to Ohio. But, KU coming off of the bye, excuse me, I think hopefully the guys are well rested. But no, tempo is definitely going to be a factor in this game. I think what we saw with KU versus Missouri, it was just I feel like the front seven did well in the first half, all in all. But, as the game went on, you could tell specifically the interior defensive linemen were getting, more and more tired. So, I think it's going to be really important for KU just to, minimize big gains on first and second down, keep it third and long. So that will help out the tempo.
100%. Yeah, I mean, they controlled the line of scrimmage, Missouri did, and the time of possession, I think, was 40 to basically 19, which is 2-1. And you can't – obviously, I don't expect West Virginia to do that, but them having control over the tempo, whether it goes really fast or really slow, however they decide, could be a thing that leads to them upsetting KU.
No doubt.
But yeah, tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, so this Rich Rod, man, he's I grew up a little bit of a West Virginia fan. My mom went there, so I remember the Rich Rod days back when they had Pat White, Steve Slayton, and all those guys. But this is same old Rich Rod. He's going to do some kind of gimmicky plays, and kind of reminds me a little bit of Gus Malzahn and what he's doing with Florida State now as their offensive coordinator. And as you can see here, they do the fake reverse, get a nice first down, instantly back on the ball, and they're just running their bread and butter, just running it up the middle. So they're definitely a run first team. I know they've played a number of different quarterbacks, but if you could stop that run, like I said earlier, minimize the gains on first and second down, keep the chains a far distance away, I think that's going to be very advantageous.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas typically plays, they at up tempo at points. They're not number 2 in the nation in tempo like West Virginia is, but the familiarity that this defense should have with up tempo is not anything new. I feel like over the years, Kansas has to play some up tempo teams. And I think, they've struggled at points against different teams who play with a lot of tempo. I think the interesting thing to me is, as a quarterback, when you are going into a week like this where the defense is playing up-tempo, how are you kind of getting these guys ready for a team like West Virginia, for example?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to make the drives count. And ideally, when the opposing offense is playing with so much tempo, you want to make the drives extended. You cannot do 3 and outs because, say, West Virginia goes on a 12-play drive, 75 yards, where it's boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. You go 3 and out, they do the same thing again, just like that, your defense is gassed. So, I think it's going to be very important on KU's offense just to extend these drives, give the defense a breather, and, defense hopefully is able to be well rested.
100%.
And yeah, this play is, I think you're going to see a lot of motion out of West Virginia, a lot of eye candy, very similar, honestly, to what KU does. And then specifically what we did under Kotelnicki as the offensive coordinator. There's going to be a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, but at the end of the day, they want to run the ball, and I think in the run game, they like to get vertical. I don't think we'll see a lot of sweeps and outside runs. Again, that's kind of what those motions are for. The motion is used to kind of spread out that defense and just barely widen up those holes so they could hit it up the middle.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the tempo, obviously, but talk about a little bit. Do you feel like this stuff that you see in fall camp, the stuff you're preparing for, playing up tempo, et cetera, it's gonna be tested. We're gonna see it firsthand how much KU's, how quick they get to the line, how quick they're ready for things. I feel like we're gonna have a real test of how good KU's endurance is in this game because last game we saw it with how much the defense had to play.
Right.
They were so tired by the end of it, and they were getting gashed all throughout the game. I feel like this could be another one of those games that if KU's not careful to stop this up-tempo offense and kind of slow it down and play at their own pace at times, it could be another kind of long day for KU's defense.
Yeah, no, big time. West Virginia's offensive line, they really don't have like big guys.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they're big humans, but as far as offensive linemen go, they're not monster guys. They're much more focused on being able to run this quick offense, and credit to them. These guys are in phenomenal shape for their size, and they're able to run that tempo. I think defensively for KU, ways that you can stop this. Number one, anytime West Virginia has a substitute, you have to milk that substitute because obviously the referee stands over the ball anytime there's an offensive substitute. Defense, I want to see those guys pretty much walking to the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Drain it out, and just be able to get quick stuff like that where you are able to get your stamina back. And I think more of a schematic standpoint, I think we should be playing up close to the line of scrimmage, especially with the DBs, because this offense, when they do pass, a lot of it is based off timing.
Yeah,
when you're playing close to the line of scrimmage, you're whether it's man or zone, if you're in that press technique, it just kind of throws off timing with RPOs and even normal standard pass game routes.
Do you feel like, when you watch the West Virginia team, that the tempo is a way to make up for maybe somebody get a talent loss? Obviously, Jaheim White is out for the year. But I think sometimes I've noticed teams tend to play fast because they're making up for some deficiency. When you watch the highlights and you watch some of their game tape, do you think there's any, talent deficiency and you feel like the tempo is the way to kind of equalize it?
100%. Yeah. I think, and it's also very momentum based. That's why, earlier when I was saying, stuff them on a first down run, stop them on a second down play. Next thing you know, it's 3rd and 8 after 2, unsuccessful plays. Like they're not going to be screaming up to the line of scrimmage just to do the same thing again. That's where they're going to kind of slow things down. And, that's where it's more talent on talent and scheme on scheme. So yeah, I think West Virginia, they're definitely, I think they had 70 new guys on their team this year. And honestly, I have no doubt that Rich Rod is going to get them going. But, to your point, this year they're kind of playing with less. So they're going to very much bank on those tempo plays and explosives.
100%. I can't wait to watch it and see how KU tries to counteract it. And I can't wait to hear about it post game. Either way, kind of some of the tricks that Kansas had during practice week.
Yeah, whole new season, for KU starting off conference play and, just take it one play at a time, thankfully back at home. And, I think West Virginia, their only away game this year was at Ohio, a game where they only scored 10 points and lost. So this will definitely be the toughest environment they've played in to date and, hopefully come out with a win.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.